Good afternoon to all of you. I know that this is a siesta time for many of us, so I hope my sharing will be received by you with interest and enthusiasm. So, I would like to begin this talk with a quotation from the joint declaration entitled Human Fraternity for World Peace and Living Together, between Pope Francis and the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar, Ahmad Al-Tayyib, last February this year, during his visit to Abu Dhabi in time for the 800 years celebration of the meeting between Saint Francis of Assisi and Sultan Malik al-Kamil. The time during their meeting, that was also the peak of the crusade. So while these people, religious people, were meeting about peace, about faith, that was also war with the crusades, or the crusaders. And I quote, "The first and foremost important aim of religion is to believe in God, to honor Him, and to invite all men and women to believe that this universe depends on a God who governs it. He is the Creator who has formed us with His divine wisdom and has granted us the gift of life to protect it. It is a gift that no one has the right to take away, threaten, or manipulate to suit oneself. Indeed, everyone must safeguard this gift of life from its beginning up to its natural end. We therefore condemn all those practices that are a threat to life, such as genocide, acts of terrorism, forced displacement, human organ trafficking, abortion, and euthanasia. Moreover, we resolutely declare that religions must never incite war, hateful attitudes, hostility, and extremism, nor must they incite violence or the shedding of blood." End of quote. I find this topic assigned to me as very interesting, yet full of challenges. As we all know in our history, many wars were fought on the basis of faith and religion. Sometimes a country or a region is being divided based on the religion of the people. And in the process, millions of people have died. In fact, many of the international conflicts that we have right now, from the Middle East between Palestinians and Jews, all the way to Kashmir between Pakistani Muslims and Indian Hindus. As in our view, when British gave the independence to India and Pakistan, they believed that separating people based on religion might be the solution. In the process, I think 4 to 6 million people died because of that. The Iran-US word feud that is nearing escalation with the shooting down of an American military drone is partially connected with the desire of the USA to advance the interest of the Saudi, who are Sunni Muslim, and the Jewish state Israel above the Shia Muslims in Iran. All these realities are partially, directly or indirectly, the result of political misunderstanding, military maneuvering, cultural prejudices, and economic inequalities connected to, related to religion. I will try my very best to share with you some source of hope in the midst of so much difficulties in the world, like what happened in the mosque attack in Christchurch, New Zealand, last May 15 this year, killing 49 people. In the Jewish synagogue in Pittsburgh, USA, last October, last year, killing 11 people praying in the synagogue. And in San Sebastian Catholic Church in Colombo, Sri Lanka, during the Easter celebration last April 21, killing 359 worshippers. Not to mention what happened in Holo Cathedral last January 27, this year, killing 20 people. With this as background, can we still dare to find meaning and hope in this topic that is allotted to me, which is Interfaith Philanthropy, innovative mechanism advancing racial harmony and sustainable social development? As a background, I wish to establish several facts necessary to better comprehend where I came from and where is the progression of this paper and the things that I desire to achieve. First, I am a Catholic priest. I was assuming there are several people who are non-Catholics here. I am a Catholic priest working as a missionary in a country with the highest number of Muslim population in the whole world, situated in the third biggest island in the whole world after Iceland and Papua, located at the heart of the entire ASEAN region, Kitapang City, West Borneo or West Kalimantan. I mention this because this is very important to make policy and strategy concerning interfaith dialogue, and in our reflections and assessment of our evaluation when it comes to missionary activities, engagement with interfaith dialogue. Indonesia has about 264 million population. 230 million of that are Muslims. That is more than the combined population of 12 countries in the Middle East. Imagine, no? Imagine. So that we can do a lot of dealing, interfaith dialogue, understanding their faith, allowing them to understand our faith to prevent conflict and misunderstanding. Secondly, I have a strong desire to explore new ways and strengthen existing mechanism for a better interfaith engagement towards peace, economic development, cultural integration, and religious tolerance. Thirdly, I wish to limit this presentation mostly within the parameter of the monotheistic religions, believing that it is best done with focus and a specific agenda, considering the time constraint. I have three objectives in this presentation. First, I wish to bring to the audience's attention the meaning of interfaith dialogue and its implication in relation to philanthropy. There's so much potential to this, I tell you, so much. After reviewing the current situation of interfaith philanthropy, my second goal is to explore innovative mechanisms and present them to you as potential options to be applied in our own organizations, whether a diocese, a university, or a congregation. The last objective is to articulate the concrete and positive impact of interfaith philanthropy to our collective vision of an enhanced racial harmony and social development. This is the bottom line of everything that we wish to discuss in this narrative. At the end of the day, we, the members of humanity, or the citizens of the world, should experience and witness a society that is moving towards a better form of human converging ecosystem, where peace is not threatened by war and terrorism, where prosperity is not restrained by unfair globalized capitalism, where freedom of religion is not shadowed by government scrutiny, just like what is happening right now in China. Millions of Muslim population are being subjected into camp or training place. This is the vision that I wish to offer for us to see, engage, learn, and appreciate the role of interfaith philanthropy in our own institution. In this presentation, the word interfaith is understood as a collaborative interaction among believers of different religious traditions. This is a very huge topic that I wish to be very specific by adapting the definition used by the Archdiocese of Chicago's Office for Ecumenical and Interreligious Affairs. They define the distinction between ecumenical, interfaith, and interreligious relations as follows. Letter A, ecumenical as relations and prayer with other Christians. B, interfaith as relations with members of the Abrahamic faith, Jewish, Christian, and Islam. C, interreligious as relations with other religions such as Hindu and Buddhism. So I'll be focusing on interfaith among Abrahamic faith. For purposes of this talk, I will be using the description of interfaith dialogue, which means I will be dealing mainly on the three major religions within the tradition of Abrahamic faith. This is not to exclude other conviction, to indicate a level of importance, but rather I find the need to begin and focus this talk on the basis of something common from these three religions, from the father of all nations, Abraham. Basically, interfaith dialogue is an undertaking by representatives of different religions, sharing the same fatherhood with Abraham in order to create a better environment for peace, cooperation, and development. This movement has gained considerable positive results towards the enrichment of our basic understanding and tolerance among each other. However, the challenges are also increasingly difficult, especially with the rise of a stateless terrorism, economic migration, refugee camps like the one in Moria in the island of Lesbos, Greece. You can Google it and you can see a scandal on human dignity as we call ourselves civilized world. The issues and problems generated from religious conflict have been compounded that resulted to so many persecutions, human displacement, and racial injustices. Hence, the urgent and persistent need to exert more effort towards interfaith dialogue becomes inevitably necessary in order to prevent civilizations from clashing again and again, and harming each other due to the old wounds inflicted in the past and religious prejudices taken advantage in order to gain political and economic gains. Interfaith dialogue, therefore, is the most practical option on the table and the most engaging approach because it includes proper representations from different parties involved and affected. In the words of Hans Kung, a professor of ecumenical theology and the president of Global Ethic Foundation, he said, "There will be no peace among the nations without peace among religions. There will be no peace among religions without dialogue among religions." In addition, to better grasp this concept, interfaith dialogue has four basic approaches that capture the totality of human need for security of life, freedom of action, understanding the faith, and spiritual communion. First, dialogue of life. A family is a nucleus of the society, especially within the context of neighborhood communities. Commonly, we reside in a population with people coming from different faiths, yet live their lives with respect, love, and friendship. This kind of dialogue is oftentimes devoid with dogmatic technicalities. However, this is so penetrating in the minds and hearts of people because they witness themselves the goodness of others, from a different faith. Allow me to share with you my own experience in Kitapang City, Indonesia. Every Chinese New Year, the Christian and Muslim people will visit in the house of the Chinese and join in their own festivity. We eat a lot of Chinese food. During, that's why, during Christmas season, Muslims, Hindu, and Buddhists will come and visit also the home of the Christians. Even the bishop's residence welcome from December 27, 28, and 29, from 7 o'clock in the morning until 5. It's an open house. And just last month, during the Eid al-Fitr, I think June, towards the end of June, no? Towards the end of June, I witnessed the Christians, from lay people to religious sisters, priests, bishop, wearing their kasak, roaming around the city in Kitapang, going to the houses of our Muslim brothers and sisters. On that day, to tell you very frankly, I was told by the sister, "Father, can you help us? Can you be our driver?" "No problem, sister. But please don't eat too much breakfast." "Why, sister?" "Because we will visit some of our friends." On that day, we visited 7 to 8 houses. It's just like in Bohol, there's so much fiesta. Okay? Secondly, dialogue of action. So that is a very powerful image, the one I'm describing to you. An image of peace, friendship, and communion. Second, dialogue of action. I think we have heard already how people from different faiths would come and collectively support a certain cause for humanity. In moments of natural calamities and man-made tragedies like war, we see individuals and organizations offering help for our needy brothers and sisters, like the recent tsunami in Palu, Sulawesi, Yolanda victims in Tacloban years ago, refugees in Syria and Yemen, reaching in total about 7 million people. As we discuss right now, millions of people are caught in the midst of war in Yemen and Syria. Here we see people becoming philanthropic in their desire to help and contribute for the result or for the benefit of even a portion of humanity, regardless of your religious affiliation. Third, dialogue of theological exchange. This is a dialogue that requires people with deep knowledge of their faith and try to bring on the table the principles and areas that we can work together to create a deeper appreciation of our own faith, as well as a clearer understanding on the faith of others. In the process, everybody gets the chance to see the beauty of each other's belief and thereby deepening their sense of tolerance and acceptance. When we are ignorant, we rarely tolerate. In fact, when something that we're ignorant of, we tend to destroy. This form of dialogue should fill the gaps of our prejudgments and cultivate the things that we have in common. The fourth, dialogue of religious experience. This method brings us closer to our common creed of a God who constantly loves and takes care of His people. It will lead us to be part of communal prayer, meditation on the Word of God, charitable initiatives, and many more ways to feel God's presence and together express our gratitude to God for all our blessings. Knowing the above 4 approaches of dialogue will facilitate us to see distinctly the extent of the necessity of discourse in our society towards a better social and racial relationship. However, in the same manner, We can also discover the complications of this kind of approach. It is never easy to engage in a dialogue with hundred or even thousand of years of independence, conflict, enmity, and distrust. But that is precisely the clear purpose of this mission in order to enhance our society and hand to the next generations to come a more peaceful, trustful, and tolerant society in the future. At this point, I will now tackle another important ingredient in interfaith dialogue, and that is philanthropy. Philanthropy gives another paradigm in exercising the four levels of dialogue that I have presented to you. And if we can maximize this, we can probably create innovative mechanism that will help us deepen our agenda for dialogue in the context of our varied expressions of faith. Sadly, many of the movements and activities pertaining interfaith discussion seem to focus on the theological level and is confined within the borders of academic endeavors, dogma, and the so-called expert of our doctrine. Although there are groups and institutions trying to get out from this restriction, but the mainstream approach are happening within the four corners of a meeting hall or in a classroom in a house of formation or seminary. As mentioned above, we need to stimulate and invest more time and energy on other forms of interfaith discourse, like dialogue of action and dialogue of life, that will possibly enrich our engagement on the level of religious experience. I am hopeful that if we have this kind of foundation, the dialogue for theological exchange can be done with the right context and in a stronger relationship. The parties engaging such a dialogue did not come from purely conceptual and doctrinal presupposition, but rather from existential realities that humanity has given importance, like friendship, cooperation, family, economic security, and other ideals that can nurture trust, dependability, and connectivity. In this context, if our dialogue is done within the framework of philanthropy, then it is easier for us to embark on a dialogue of life and action. Using philanthropy in aid of interfaith dialogue can be extremely beneficial for all who are involved. Imagine students, teachers, religious sisters, or even bishops, imam, or pastor will be working together on a certain outreach program for the benefit of a certain community through housing projects, for example, or a sector in our society that is in need of assistance, like children with congenital disease or mothers with breast cancer. As we all know, cancer does not respect our religious affiliation. In the same manner, if we extend help to these kinds of people, our goodness and philanthropic act will be felt regardless of what church you go on a worship day. That is the power of charity, and its impact will be amplified if it is done within the context of interfaith community, as collective determination among many religions to reach out those who are left behind in our society. In addition, many of the United Nations 17 Global Goals for Sustainable Development are long-standing social agenda of ancient beliefs. Since time immemorial, churches were at the front line in the promotion of these global necessities long before UN was created in October 24, 1945. That's almost 74 years ago. The social teachings of the church speak so much of the urgency to create institutions that will formulate sustainable and concrete actions for these global problems. UN serving as mechanism, umbrella, churches, interfaith dialogue could serve the same purpose. Hence, if we upgrade our interfaith dialogue to the level that is conducive to build a momentum of a collective determination among many religions, the opportunity is immeasurable, especially in the quality of strategic alliance and working collaboration among different religions, as well as between church and state cooperation. In the words of Pope Francis in his apostolic exhortation, "Rejoice and be glad," he said, "Thanks be to God. Throughout the history of the Church, it has always been clear that a person's perfection is measured not by the information or knowledge they possess, but by the depth of their charity." The same criterion can be applied to any church in the world. The manner we exercise charity towards others and within our congregation will become a sole determining factor to gauge the perfection and value of our own dignity as believers. This is our starting point, and this is where all churches are in agreement. Whether we call it zakat for Islam, tzedakah for the Jews, caritas for Christian traditions, the same significant message is being forwarded, which means the care for others or the care for humanity. And that is the technical description of philanthropy. Based on the above discussion, the 4 levels of interfaith dialogue are actually closely connected with each other. Each kind supplements each other to grow and help create the desired end and purpose of such a dialogue. We should not continue having a dialogue bringing volumes of books about our church teachings without engaging the other parties in the more concrete situations of human endeavor. We have to strengthen that balance in order to have a more sustaining and empowering interfaith dialogue for the sake of the next generations to come. Inevitably, philanthropy has a special role to play towards the advancement of an innovative structure that brings together believers of varied faith, seeking genuine racial harmony and sustainable social development. Integrating philanthropy in the mainstream approach of interfaith dialogue is a recent innovation by people who realize the importance of dialogue in action and in actual life situations. The magnitude of the kind of calamities that we are collectively facing right now would require us to consolidate our material resources, linkages, and manpower in order to create a decent contribution and impact to so many social problems right now. The issues on climate change, the huge damaging effects of natural disaster, the growing number of refugees due to war and political conflict, the worldwide problem of garbage, mostly plastics in the rivers and oceans. In 2050, there's a projection that there will be more plastics than fish in the ocean. And that is 20 or maybe 31 years from now. Imagine. And the reality of a very distressing traffic in the cities around the world are some problems that need a collective response, not just from governments and NGO, but even from the different churches and faith-based organizations. In our government in the Philippines, they're asking for an emergency power. Others, they have no clue how to solve this. I am not saying that this is the job of the people in the religion, but the churches linked together in the umbrella of interfaith dialogue can be a solid force and can be at the front line of setting examples of actual collaborative effort and joint venture towards solving or at least contributing to the solutions of some social problems. Our people within the society and in government agencies need a model from their own church. We have to offer something. We have to contribute as a church. Through this unique integration, the agenda for dialogue in all forms can be enhanced and sustained, even if we have some doctrinal, ritual, and traditional differences. Why? Because the concrete needs of humanity and the deep longing of our being to live in peace with our neighbors, to be secure in our homes, to worship God without fear, to ensure the future of our children, to access medical needs, and many more, are supremely far more important than the religious differences we have, whether actual or imagined. This is the existential imperative I am proposing, because if we will not cultivate the ground for interfaith dialogue so that it will nurture and grow, peace and economic stability will be impossible to achieve. Currently, advancing racial harmony and social development requires freedom of speech and the practice of religion, economic stability, peace in the community, access to opportunities, better education, political maturity, respect for cultural differences, and more. These are the fruits of a healthy dialogue between different religions. If dialogue succeeds, there is peace and harmony. If it fails, then there is chaos and disorder, as Hans Kung described earlier. Allow me to end this presentation with 4 recommendations based on the 4 approaches of dialogue that I have presented earlier. I want this to be hopefully productive. Now, when we go home to our respective organizations, congregations, churches, or institutions, we bring something with the perspective of engaging dialogue with our brothers and sisters from other faiths. I know some of you have heard a lot of discussions about this topic, but I wish to go a little farther by presenting you some possible areas within the strength of our organizations, whether dioceses, congregations, or schools. What do I mean by strength of our own organizations? I mean what we have right now, what we have currently right now. So that might possibly spark something within our collective consciousness, leading to embark on something that is institutionally transformative. Nothing new about these things, but if seen in the light of interfaith dialogue, we can actually do a lot of innovative mechanism based on the resources that we currently possess. It is just like sitting in a gold mine situation. Moreover, I am making these recommendations for all of you, but from a standpoint of being a Christian. However, I am afraid I might sound directly talking to people coming from my own church. I'm giving emphasis to our Catholic audience here, especially our leaders, because how can I convince my friends from other faiths if I have not dealt these things within my own church. Number one, dialogue of life. I am fully aware that many of us here have schools and centers of learning that caters and deals with the education of the young people. Probably we can innovate by creating a program for our students to have an interfaith club or student organization wherein they have the chance to interact and manage their own organization whose membership are coming from different faiths. The objective of this club is to provide an avenue for them to learn from the life experiences of others and deepen their awareness about the faith of others. Secondly, they can also be asked to extend outreach programs that will benefit a certain social advocacy. In this way, these young students will have a chance to witness life and faith from the different angles of human experiences without prejudices. Lastly, under this category, they can also organize related activities in the celebration of the World Interfaith Harmony Week every first week of February, as declared by the United Nations. Indeed, if we are able to initiate a program like this for our students, the concept of dialogue of life is fully alive. Number two, dialogue of action. There are so many charitable institutions founded by faith-based groups, churches, and religious congregations that really help a lot in our society, especially the underprivileged. Some of them would even have employees like nurses, social worker, teachers who are coming from other faiths. In my case, in Indonesia, I work with the Augustinian sisters. They have two hospitals. The other hospital, their employees, Muslim employees, are more than Catholic employees. However, I wanted to push a little farther by exploring a more profound yet a bit complicated collaboration between different churches. Can you help me imagine an orphanage or an elderly home being managed and co-owned by Christians and Muslims? How about a housing and livelihood program managed by an Islamic NGO based in Indonesia and in Bangladesh, but funded by Jewish and Christians in the United States? Or a hospital in Sri Lanka managed by Seventh-day Adventist Church, but subsidized by the corporate social responsibility funds from Aramco of Saudi Arabia. A drug rehabilitation facility, vocational school, and scholarship grants in Cambodia, supported by Caritas International, the Archdiocese of Manila, or the Dioceses of San Carlos, or Vigan, or Lawag, possibly, and the Sultan of Brunei. The reconstruction of a Catholic church, housing projects and livelihood programs in Tacloban, Philippines, were built through the assistance of Chuchi Foundation after the destruction of the world's biggest super typhoon, Haiyan or Yolanda. I could not forget the comment of the one in charge of Chuchi Foundation in the Philippines. He was asked, "Sir, why did you help the cathedral in Tacloban and you are not a Catholic or you are not Christian?" He said, "We helped." That was sometime November, no? It happened sometime November. We wanted to help the cathedral because by December 16, people will start to go to the church for Simbang Gabi. And God, the church, when they go to the church, they find hope. They find God. They find meaning in the midst of destruction. It's easy to imagine somebody saying that one, if he is a bishop or a mother superior. But he is a man, not even a Christian. So powerful, so powerful. And that gives us assurance that these things that I'm saying right now is not only in the book, it's not only in the internet. This is possible. This is happening in our midst. Another orphanage in the Himalayas, supported by the corporate social responsibility funds of Al Jazeera. The biggest and the newest Catholic church named San Agustin in Kitapang City that was opened last November, last year. Biggest, the entire basilica, you see the entire basilica of Santo Niño in Cebu, can be put inside that church. It's quite big, really big. But 92% of the cost of the construction of the church, 92% comes from Indonesia government, a Muslim-dominated country. 92%. The churches, if you have the chance to visit Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Doha, the churches for both Protestants and Catholic in Doha, Abu Dhabi, and Dubai were built and donated by their Muslim governments. Our government in the Philippines cannot do this because there is separation of church and state. Of course, legally they cannot do that. But the message is clear, I suppose. The message is clear. A few years ago, we have heard of the so-called Arab Spring, wherein longtime dictators like Muammar Gaddafi of Libya and Hosni Mubarak of Egypt, long time, 30, 40 years in power, were removed from power due to bloody revolution, claimed by many as engineered by Muslim Brotherhood. What if we create something similar to that kind of brotherhood? And we call it Abrahamic Brotherhood, wherein Jews, Christians, and Muslim brothers and sisters will work together not to sponsor a political and bloody revolution, of course not, but to form an organization that functions like a PBSP, or Philippine Business for Social Progress. The aim is very simple: do business with the ethics and core values of Abrahamic faith, and to collectively use their philanthropic resources or budget for corporate social responsibility in line with the promotion of peace, racial harmony, and development through interfaith dialogue. Third, under Dialogue for Theological Exchange, I wish to recommend the creation of the Office of Ecumenical or Ecumenism and Interfaith Affairs in our congregations, religious provinces. I know some dioceses are doing this. Dioceses and even universities. In order to ensure its full direction and function, it might be healthy to appoint an executive director, as well as create an advisory board composed of members coming from other faiths. We should not create a council or a board with the members coming from the same faith. There's no variety of perspective. The agenda is not colored. The agenda is not deepened because there is only one set of direction. In addition to this proposal, probably we can start to use the name Abraham to name our parish church, a building, and a classroom in our school. As mentioned in the earlier discussion, this name is considered to be the father of all nations, accepted by Jewish, Christian, and Muslim traditions. This could be a powerful unifying component by using the value of the name. Just like in 1961, the Vatican invited the Irish Dominicans to open a church that will be named after Saint Abraham. Until today, the church or the parish has continued to exist, Saint Abraham Parish. You might wonder where it is located. Any guess? Maybe I can sponsor a dinner for you if you can answer where it is. It is located in the heart of the city that is so favorite of Donald Trump. In fact, this morning in the news, it's always attached to the name of Donald Trump. Tehran, in the country of Iran. See? There is a parish named Saint Abraham. I've been asking some liturgists and canon lawyers. They find difficult to give me the information, but I think I was feeling there should be something like this. And I was so happy to discover that there is, and it is in the heart of Tehran, in Iran. In a similar fashion, the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, ordered the renaming of Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Mosque. This name is his father, no? The current president of United Arab Emirates, to rename the mosque into Maryam Isa last June 2017. In other words, the mosque, it was renamed as Mary, the Mother of Jesus Mosque. This move was unprecedented in the history of our relationship and was intended, this is his words, to consolidate the bonds of humanity between followers of different religions. Lastly, number 4, dialogue of religious experience. I wish to invite all of you to take a closer look and to try to experience the unique program offered by Silsila Dialogue Movement that aims to promote peace and dialogue among different religions. This is a community founded in 1984 by an Italian missionary, Father Sebastiano Di Ambra, who worked in Zamboanga, Philippines. The center established the so-called Harmony Village wherein people of different faith, especially Islam, Christians, can live together to unveil the beauty of understanding the faith, culture, and traditions of other people in an atmosphere of peace, friendship, and communion. They also have created several types of programs to educate interested parties, like your sisters, priests, bishops, imams, social workers, educators, and even military officers, to better comprehend interfaith dialogue. In conclusion, this is the last paragraph, I would like to reiterate the words of King Abdullah of Jordan in September 2010 during his presentation of the proposed World Interfaith Harmony Week at the plenary session of the 65th United Nations General Assembly in New York. He said, "It is essential to resist forces of division that spread misunderstanding and mistrust, especially among peoples of different religions. The fact is, humanity everywhere is bound together, not only by mutual interest, but by shared commandments to love God and neighbor. What we are proposing is a special week during which the people of the world, in their own places of worship, could express the teachings of their own faith about tolerance, respect for others, and peace." End of quote. Dear friends and participants of the Third Asian Philanthropic Conference, Today, more than ever, we continue to express our desire to achieve enduring peace, cultural integration, racial harmony, and sustainable development for our civilization through dialogue in the context of our faith. Indeed, King Abdullah and Pope Francis were right. We need to resist the forces of division and unleash the power of charity in our hearts to create a better world for our children and the future generations. As believers of the God of Abraham, this vision of a peaceful world and a loving humanity becomes our own sincere commitment and noble obligation. Thank you very much. In Deum.